said allow.
Oh, there we go. Hang on.
Okay. But it's all footage. It's all footage of the animals in our care, so it should be actually quite interesting and lovely in most parts. So listen, I'm just going to crack into it and it'll speak for itself. So making this smaller. So we start with a pig called Mrs. Wobbles. This was our first kind of serious nursing case, a little potbelly pig who had been found in a shed with a broken leg and abscesses on all her feet, awful condition, and she was in shock and shut down when she arrived. She was covered in necrotic wounds, bones, exposed, and this was the reason that I titled this talk as A Sick Pig is a Dead Pig, because there was a man visiting the farm that day. I think he was delivering hay, and he saw her in the middle of treatment, and she's just in a little shed, like with her little head in the sunshine. And he said, "Oh, a sick pig is a dead pig." And I'd heard it before, and I just committed it to memory, gone, because she was the first very sick little pig that we had on the farm. We had 2 healthy pigs before her, and it was an awful lot of work, but you can see the condition she came in. And we worked through it. We had to nurse her for a couple of months, hand feeding her, and slowly the wounds started healing. And slowly all of these abscesses healed up and the necrotic wounds healed up. And then we could start really working with her. We brought her to UCD. We saw what the damage was to her bones, what arthritis had set in, treated her feet, and really look at the situation. And so this was our first disabled pig. So we changed the environment, and we kind of changed our whole approach to how we work with pigs, because the huge heavy bodies on those tiny joints, which are already under pressure from poor conformation, which we'll go into later on, it makes us think of, well, what impact are those feet hitting the ground, and what can we do to help it? So we started changing ground surface and how we treated it. So you can see little Wobbles there. She has her own, she has a different house now, but that was a little shed at the time. We made a ramp going up and covered it in sand, so there was nothing for her to step over or catch her feet on, because she could only walk on 3 legs, really. And then the rest of the surface is shavings and soil. And that meant she could move around without furthering the osteoarthritis that had set in and aggravating the healing abscesses and all of that. So that was a big help. I'm just gonna let someone in. And there she is, that little waggy-tailed girl, the second pig you could see. So that's how well nursing worked for her, and that was our first introduction into, let's really go for this, let's pull in all our resources, and as long as she's improving and we don't feel it's a welfare deficit situation to be hanging on to something because we love them, which as we go on through the years, we are kind of shifting those parameters quite a lot, because we know now what damage little pigs can withstand and what they can't. But anyway, so that was our first insight into piggy health, really. But she's living a good life now. So let's see if this skips to the next thing. You can hear me okay, can you?
Still quite low.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We heard all that, but it's still quite low.
Okay. Obesity. So these are 2 pigs. This is very, very common. Everyone who has pet pigs, the majority will think a fat pig is a happy, jolly pig. But actually, these are young animals. These guys were only 2.5 years of age, and they were obese. So obese that they'd be lying down on the ground instead of standing up and eating. So we have to work with them, get them moving, soften the ground where we want them to mix. That weight on little joints on stony ground is going to cause problems. another very obese pig. We had to work with the owners for a month before he could be transported to lose the weight. And then just interestingly enough, we asked the owner to transport with the pig because he was under much pressure. While being transported, it's best for them to be with the people they know so they don't get too stressed. And here is a way of helping little pigs lose weight, just use some treat balls on soft ground, get them moved, keep them interested and keep them stimulated. And I'm afraid there's a problem with this computer. It's staggering now. Give it 1 second to think. I'm just going to make it go small. I'm sorry, guys. It's technical issues. Can you see? You can see the page now with all the editing profiles, can you?
Yes, all the little pictures, and then the one with the pig and the pink ball.
Great. You can't see the other stuff on the side too with the Zoom. It's full screen, is it?
No, it isn't. Sorry. No, it's a collection of small photographs and Peggy on other half. So
okay, that's okay as long as you can't see the Zoom things, because that on my screen that's encroaching over the thing that I want you to see. So we'll just focus on the little thing on the right, and hopefully it'll play a bit better. Yes. Oh, it's staggering. Okay. Let's try and get to the next bit. Fat blindness. This is a major concern that we see with a lot of pigs. They come in, their conformation has been designed to have lots of wrinkles, which are pretty cute, but the skin folds, collect fat, and it closes off the eyes. And then if people aren't cleaning it, it becomes infected. So we encourage everyone to handle their pigs, handle their eyes, give them high value food, and just get cleaning. And you can do it. You can see the way we're doing it. There's no stress or restraining, just cleaning the eyes with warm water, and it's fine. And that makes everything so much better. Bullying, we see an awful lot of because pigs are supposed to work out their differences when they're small, before they have big muscle, before they have their long tusks. If you allow pigs who haven't grown up with each other to come into contact without doing it safely with play dates, you end up with this. Pigs with a lot of injuries from fighting. Every pig thinks they're the dominant one until they're shown otherwise, and you want that to happen when they're small. If it happens when they're older, you have very ripped ears. You can get very, very bad wounds. And this little pig here, Dora, came to us in a terrible condition because she was left having to fend for herself. She was a feisty girl, so she would start fights, but she shouldn't have been in the position where she was allowed to do that and come off the worst. But this is her today. She came through. We matched her with a good companion who treated her well. Another little piggy who came to a sticky condition by having a fight with another pig on our farm, actually. So things do happen. Gates get left open or fences break down, and you will have a communication, as the Americans like to say, where someone ends up hurt. So ripped ears, bitten off toes, these are all things that happen with bigger pigs. And we'll come to more of that with the nursing. So the big thing we're seeing is people are breeding pigs at the moment who are usually brothers and sisters. So we're having a lot of inbred families come to us. And with inbreeding comes bad conformation, so joints not stacked up correctly, allowing extra pressure on joints and early onset arthritis. And this arthritis will start at 1.5 years of age because they grow so fast and they get so heavy on these joints. So again, we have to extend our old folks block to allow for younger pigs who need support for their joints. And this is an example of that. These two girls have actually since passed on, one from tumours from her not being spayed, and the other from her arthritis just got too much. This is not a dead pig. Please don't be upset. That's a pig who's been sedated to have her joints looked at in UCD. So we have a lot of work with UCD Veterinary College, and they everything from operations and surgery to scans and x-rays to let us know what condition inside the pig is, so we can make informed decisions. Is this terribly boring? Can I get a thumbs up? I can only see Linda here. Is everything good? Linda's on her phone, so it's obviously not that gripping.
Very interesting. Continue on. Thank you. Loving
Okay.
it.
It's great.
All right.
It's great. Keep going.
Okay, so heat lamps. A lot of people think pigs are hardy creatures. Now, wild boar would be hardy, the original animal who has thick hair, and they actually have an undercoat, which is woolly, much like a sheep's undercoat, which has been made to be their full-term coat now. But in a similar fashion, we've bred pigs to lose their undercoat and only have this thin oyer coat, which is rubbish. It doesn't keep them warm. They can't go off and nest. They can't choose their own environment. So they are not hardy. Pigs are the least hardy creatures in the world. Pneumonia is number one killer for a lot of people that we speak to who have lost their pets, their pet pigs. No matter how hard you try, if you have an animal that perhaps has been compromised in their early years or has had pneumonia already, you're going to have repeat pneumonia and damaged lungs. 2 people have entered the waiting room. I'm so sorry. Eva and sorry guys, I forgot about my doorbell duties. Okay, so to combat that, we have a lot of heat lamps on the go. We've had to build 2 winter barns. We have an awful lot of factors to include as we evolve as a pig rescue, and we're changing the way we build our housing and the way we look after our pigs, and warmth is a huge thing. So pig behavior, the interesting thing that we're always learning about. This is great. This is Ava and Reggie, and I'm just going to pause it there for a second, and when I play it again, just have a look at, this is a successful play date. We are standing on the sidelines with piggy boards. We're ready to step in if anyone gets aggressive and grabs onto an ear. So Ava is the little pig, and her tail is sticking straight out, and she's ready for a fight. Reggie's tail is swinging low, and he's submitting to her. She's a very small pig compared to him, but she's determined to be the dominant one. So just have a look at how it plays out here. They're not hurting each other, they're just turning. Now he's swinging his tail, she's chomping, and he says, okay, fine, I give up. You win. And that's what we want to see. And this is them at the end of the day, best friends. That is absolutely perfect. It seems to have lost another little piggy play date that I had where it went similarly. And these are 2 pigs who've matched up. We'll move on. Piggy behavior. This is Sam. He's a boy and he's nesting, just to show that it's not just females who will nest. Every pig wants to nest. It's in their behavior because they are nesting animals. So in the wild, they're not, standing in the corner of a field. They're looking for somewhere that they can actually fill with organic material and keep themselves warm. So we have to fill those needs by providing all sorts of materials and access to the outside. There's Sean. Sorry, my video's gone slow, but there's Sean bringing a stick into his house. Enrichment is a major necessity for these pigs. So these piglets have shavings, but they also are eating the hay. and they're finding things in the bottom of the hay. This is, no, why did I put this in here? I wonder. I think I can't see the second half of it. Okay, so this should be in nursing. But this is also part of behavior. I'm just going to pause it there. This is a pig who came to us and went into shock as soon as he arrived. Part of him going into shock was he was in mourning. His mother had passed away, and his owner thought that he had gone into a huge depression, and the only thing he could think of was bringing him to a place that had other pigs. Now, since then, that was 2 years ago. Since then, our team now will rethink about how to deal with owners who feel their pigs need to come to us for company, because the pigs bond so strongly with their owners as well as their companions that they live with. So this pig had lost his mum, and then his owner doing the right thing, bringing him to us, but that meant that Max lost the only other person that he knew and loved, and it was too much for him. So by the time he got to us and his owner left, poor old Max was in a big depression. So he refused to eat, he refused to get up, he was soiling the bed, so we had to nurse him. And that meant keeping him hydrated, lots of electrolytes, lots of sugary things, and really, really looking after him around the clock. And that's while you're trying to figure out what your next step is, really, you're just keeping the animal going with electrolytes, same as you would horses or dogs in any veterinary practice. You can see he won't stand up for food there. He's lost all power. The last of his life force is gone from the journey and from going into shock. But still, we're not giving up hope, because that is a bright animal. So because to deal with this depression, which we do see a lot with pigs who are surrendered by owners who really care about them, we have to throw everything at it. And at the time, we were talking with an incredible lady called Louise, who does pharmacognosy. God, why can't I think of it? Pharmacognosy. There we go. Which is an incredible practice of introducing the intensive sense of natural essential oils. And if you could see what was happening here, if my computer wasn't stuttering, that she's presenting him with different things for depression and for arthritis, and he's responding in different ways to it. And she did a whole session with him, which was really, really interesting, because he just kept on stretching out when she'd bring different essential oils in, and reacting so strongly to different scents. And by the end of it, I'm just going to skip forward. The next day, because he was dealing with grief, this is a little video. I'm going to turn up the sound here so you can hear what he's doing. Sorry if I can. Can't turn it up, it seems. There. Okay. So this little pig is suddenly getting rid of all of his anger. And Louise was saying that whatever way they process anger, whether it's through grief or feeling they've been abandoned or frustration over it, everything changing in their worlds, because he had just arrived to us, this place that smells of females and uncastrated males, and he's never been away from his own home, and he's lost his mum. So the next day he had this outburst of rage, and then he never looked back. So here he is the next day visiting his neighbor, and mooching around and socializing and exploring without the anger. And we found that really interesting. There is an awful lot to say for the science of self-selection, which is why we do try and make sure that animals get access to natural foraging outside. Even though, you know, with overgrazed ground, which is what we have, we still have hedgerows, we still have natural rose and hawthorn and natural meadow that we've planted. And it is very interesting to see what animals select to help themselves to what nature is offering. So there's an awful lot to think about when you are dealing with complicated issues that animals who are as complex as pigs and as emotionally rounded as these pigs. It's very interesting to see. So moving on to practical nursing, so you know there's a lot to get through. Warmth, as we've gone through before, there's a pig in winter buried in hay, and that's the way they need it in the winter time. Moving on, if we can. Oh, no, the wheel of death. So I'm gonna. Oh yeah, this is a video I sent to our vet. Is that music coming from somewhere?
I think someone needs to mute their microphone.
Okay. I thought it was from my crazy computer. So we'll often send videos to our vets, and that's a major part of our practical nursing, sending videos, footage to our vets of relevant information. And here was a pig, he was swollen up in his belly. We didn't know what was going on. So we show the eyes, we show the membranes, hoping that it will show up something to our vets. We show the gums, we take the temperature, we measure the heart rate, the respiratory rate, all this information we pass on in our piggy training to anyone who's interested in adopting pigs, or if anyone who has found themselves suddenly with pigs and would like to learn more. These kind of practical nursing skills to gain the information that you need to try and diagnose what's going on. Even if you take videos and send it to us, it's all really, really useful. The ability to take temperatures, which is coming up, and look at all the vital signs, because pigs are complicated and their environment can throw up lots of issues. Here is a boar who came to us, and the same, this is so behavioral. This boar was on his own for 4 years. He came to us and just shut down. He went into an absolute overwhelmed depression. Everything was far too stimulating with the smell of boars and females coming into heat. And he said, I can't take it. So the only way we could feed him was by rubbing his belly so he didn't get annoyed with us because he was a boar, and feed the food directly into his mouth. And that kept him going for a couple of days until he acclimatized strong. And then it bought us time, keeping him hydrated, keeping his belly full, making sure he has a warm bed. And then we were able to go, okay, what do we do now? So I'm just going to forward if I can. We had a female who was spayed, and he really needed companionship to get himself out of this fog. And he fell in love instantly with Aoife. Here he is nuzzling her. She thinks he's lovely because he smells like a boar. That is always good, but he couldn't impregnate her. And that is just the best thing for us to see, instant sort of satisfaction in finding peace and companionship. So practical, again, taking a temperature. This pig is tricky. I don't want his head near me because he's a bit of a biter. So I'm scratching his back, and he's kept busy with that lovely thought of scratchiness going on. Because for pigs, scratches are life. Your best part to get them to lift up the tail is scratch very close to the anus, and they'll lift their tail up for that, and then you can insert the thermometer. You have to keep the hand going. You have to keep the scratch going if you're worried your pig is going to run off on you or turn around. And that allows you time to get their temperature and get a reading. So again, 2 pigs in one go. We didn't know these pigs very well, but they're kuni mixes and they're lovely. So I'm keeping one away with the foot, keep the hand scratching close to the anus, the magic spot. It's taking a while for the thermometer to get a reading, and that is the magic spot as well for getting them to fall over. So that can happen too. But you know, getting to know how to handle these pigs is vital for being able to treat them. It just skipped past one there that was, I'm just going to show you this sun cream. Part of looking after your pigs is covering them in sun cream. That pig there has used a whole tube of sun cream just to keep him covered, because he's a pink pig and he likes to sunbathe. No sense at all. So every owner has to get some sun cream going on. Dental issues. Who knew that pigs would need dentals as well? Ideally, these pigs would get dentals every year, but we have 125 pigs. That would be 2 or 3 pigs a week. We can't keep up with it, so we just have to keep an eye on it. Make sure there's no awful smells coming from the mouth. Make sure any signs of blood, like there is there for Legend. We were able to video that and then watch the video back and see where the problem was coming from. Subsequently, he had to go in and he got x-rayed so that they could see exactly what was going on. And they discovered that he had been shot by a shotgun and his face was full of lead pellets. When the pig Legend arrived to us, he had a jaw issue, so we had to hand feed him, but there was no signs of flesh wounds. So whatever had happened years before, and his jaw had seized up through, you know, those injuries and arthritis. So we started hand feeding to help him gain weight, and it wasn't until he got the dental that we saw that what this problem is actually from. And there's a communication between his nasal cavity and his mouth, which means he's very susceptible to pneumonia. So when we hand feed him, we have to be very careful not to flood his mouth with fluid. So he has time to, you know, masticate and let the fluid be swallowed as opposed to being overwhelmed with that. But he has turned out fantastically, and here he is being hand fed. He loves it. He's he's great manners. He waits for the hand to pop the food in his mouth. He's very gentle, and I think he really enjoys the special attention that it gives him. Sorry about this staggering video. And everyone loves feeding Legend. So bring that forward. What's this? Okay, so here's a little piggy nesting. This is a sow who came to us already impregnated by a huge boar, because we ended up with all of the pigs, so we knew who the dad was. And we have cameras on the sows when they're in pig and when they're farrowing. And there she is in her lovely warm cozy box, and we're watching this thinking, great, okay, it's happening, she's nesting, it's going to be in the next, say, 12 hours or 5 hours, but it's imminent. But this went on and on and on. She was nesting and nesting. We were watching, getting a bit more worried, and then she lay down, and she was pushing and pushing until she was exhausted, and nothing happened. So we got the vet out, and he was able to examine her, and we couldn't see anything, but we knew that a little piglet had died inside her before he had passed down the canal. And I called Owen Ryan in UCD, who is the head vet, and it was 2 a.m. at this stage. And I said, we have a problem. And he said, get her in. And they did I think it was their first pig cesarean. And oh God, what am I doing? And they were able to save 6 little piglets' lives. doing a C-section on Ellie, and they did a fantastic job. There they are in their incubator, and those 6 little pigs are still alive 9 months later. They've all since been neutered, and the girls will be spayed in the next coming months. And it was a great success, and great to have the cameras on our piggies. So we had an awful lot of piglets born this year because 4 sows came in pregnant. And so these are the boxes we built. This isn't for healthy girls who are having their piglets without stress. They don't need boxes. They don't need us at all in the picture. They just need straw and safety and peace from other pigs, and the ability to remove themselves from other pigs and from us and listen to their bodies. But this little sow in here is very old. She was impregnated by a boar who's about 4 times her size. And when she went into labor, she was so exhausted after pushing the first one, and the second piglet who came out was backwards, and all of the rest were backwards. So she needed assistance from us. And so we had to go inside and help her every time she released one from the uterus. And the result of that is she was too exhausted to be able to watch where she's lying down because her legs couldn't hold her after. So we had to help her out. We had these boxes made beforehand because we knew they were old girls, and she can see them and smell them, and she can see us with them, and be at peace with that. And we would let them in to her to feed, but she couldn't squish them. So, you know, it is when pigs are stressed and they're not allowed to have their own nesting and nursing skills, when they're not allowed to have those natural instincts, they're not going to be able to be great mums. But in the right environment, they are fantastic mums, because they did fine without us before we started farming. So I just had this little video in as an example. This is a little sow. Sows are not aggressive to us when we are kind with them, and when we read their body language, and when we let them know we're not going to hurt them. So this little sow had 2 surviving piglets after a harrowing birth, and we're just letting her know, that's Tigris there, holding her piglets. We're letting her know that she can see them, she can smell them, we're not going to do anything. But we have to keep them safe while she's up and turning. And then when she's down, we'd let them go. And we would have to provide them with the milk because she didn't have any milk herself. So the way we did that was we would drop milk onto the teat. So the piglets still felt it was nursing. Mama still thought she was nursing them, but we were providing the essential sustenance. And that is actually lamb's milk there that worked for them. So that's another thing that really helps. Instead of bottle feeding and them aspirating, you can just release it very drop by drop, and they take it into their mouth and go instead of it being forced into their mouth. I know pneumonia from aspiration, little piglets who are orphaned is quite common. And then little Jimmy in the sleeve from a cardigan that was cut out. Jimmy arrived from a dog pound. He had been handed in by grandparents whose grandson had ended up with a very, very young piglet. And by the time he came to us, he wasn't eating. And our friend who knows some pig farmers reached out to one of her friends and said, would you mind giving us a pig who's 2 weeks old, who can be a companion and will live out his days on a sanctuary? And the farmer said, I would love that for my piglet. And so he released little Guy here. We did have them in a quarantine area. We had to because of their immune systems being so compromised. And the second little Michael, who is the pig in the background with no cardigan jumper, second he arrived, Jimmy decided, actually, now there's competition, I am hungry. So that saved his life. Look at him, looking at him. He's so cute. So that worked out beautifully. And those two are best pals now. Just for anyone who may end up with piglets they need to neuter, this is a scrotum that the intestines have been released into. So it's he needed emergency surgery. You keep the size of one testicle, and this one has intestines actually in it. So again, UCD took him in for emergency surgery. He was opened up, he was neutered at the same time, rectified, and he's thriving now 9 months later. So we see quite a lot of hernias, so far nothing too nasty. I just wanted to cover diarrhea just quickly, because we discovered a really lovely treatment for diarrhea, which was recommended by a vet who used it on cows. And so I guess farmers would already know about it, but us not being from a farming background wouldn't have heard of it before. And it's kaolin powder, Kaolin powder. And when little piglets are scouring, the risk of them dehydrating suddenly is very high, and you can lose them very quickly. But kaolin powder, mixing it into a little paste and syringing it into their mouth, allowing them to swallow it, it allows the fluids and the food to bind in their stomach, and it binds it up and allows the water to be absorbed before being shat straight out, basically. So we've had huge success with that, as well as supplementary electrolytes and good probiotics and all the normals. But with orphan pigs, or with pigs who maybe the mums have gotten mastitis suddenly, or they lose their mum, or they arrive to us as piglets, they're always going to scour. So we have kaolin in huge buckets, and we recommend every pig owner to have some for the next time anyone scours. We have Vlad here, who was lame. I might just skip through because I have an awful lot and I don't want to bore everyone. There's huge Vlad, massive bore, very, very lame. We were able to treat him by belly rubs. Belly rubs are king on our farm. Get them down with belly rubs, give them lovely things while they're down, and they'll trust you for nearly anything. That's foot trimming, that's treating injuries, taking temperatures, doing teeth, cleaning eyes. It's a great friend to have. So we always say, put it all in the bank, give belly rubs galore, so the next time you need them, they trust you, they know good things are coming. I'm going to turn the sound up on this because this is quite alarming. This is our first experience of a piggy with an infection in her larynx. So something had gone on. I'm not sure if that's going to work. Let's see. Are you okay? I've got the wheel of death. I'm sorry, guys. I hope you don't mind. Computer's very old and I'm trying to turn the volume up on it. I'm going to move on. Basically, this little girl here, something had happened. She'd maybe eaten some grit with her food, which is very, very common because pigs love eating off and out of the ground. But it scratched her larynx and her vocal cords, and they started closing in on her. And if you could hear that, it's a very alarming sound. It's basically her trying to get air through her airwaves, which are closing over. It got worse and worse and worse. And we were videoing it and sending it to our vets who couldn't attend. And they recommended a steroid injection to help with the inflammation as quickly as possible. And she panicked whenever we left her side. And this is both behavior and nursing, because myself and Tara, who's the farm supervisor, we had to just hold her because she was getting into a panic. of her not being able to breathe, and that was exacerbating the problem. Because she knew us as her carers, if we were with her and beside her and not sharing in her panic, she actually relaxed. If we left her side, she panicked and started collapsing and not getting enough oxygen in. So we literally just had to hold her for hours until the steroids kicked in. And once they did kick in, got the sound working for this. We also got the sound ready for this. So just so you know how alarming something can sound, but that it's fixable. I didn't actually share this on Instagram because I thought people would be quite upset by it. But now you know that it all worked out fine. So that was it at 7:30 in the morning, and then by 9:30 it had progressed to...
Catherine, you haven't shared your screen with us.
Oh, are you just looking at my face?
We're looking at your name.
Oh, that's grand. Okay, one sec. So I go to share screen, iMovie. That should be it. Come up. Share.
Yeah, that's you back.
Brilliant. There's Poopy Bum. Like the one thing that I always worry when I'm so done talking about the serious conditions or whatever is we adore our pigs. I hope that comes across. Like we see such nasty situations and pigs being, having been abused and abuse through neglect, which is maybe not intentional, but no less damaging to the animal for long periods. But all of this is we have a huge team of people who just adore these animals. So it means a lot to us to be able to share the information, because we really we would have grabbed this with both hands if there was something like this for us to watch at the beginning of our journey. And it's quite a lonely place to start looking after pigs, especially without other rescues having pigs and being able to share that knowledge. So we really hope that this can reach some people. So that was her by 7:30, and this was her by 9:30 a.m. So that's all the air she can get in by this stage.
Awful.
Yeah, horrible. So luckily I think the fact that she wasn't allowed to panic when it got very rough for her, that she had carers who recognized that they couldn't leave, and we had the ability to be able to say to the rest of the team, we can't leave this barn. You know, like a few things have to come together, but it really is safety in numbers. If you have people around you that can help, you know, that's a privilege for your animal. And then later on, this was her. This was, I think, at about 3 in the afternoon. Let me turn the sound up if I can. There we go. Where have we gone? I seem to have moved it all around now. Made it vanish.
That looked very like Mrs. Wobbles.
Yeah, there's Wobbles, and I've
Yes.
I've magically deleted the one of her walking out and breathing normally, but I hope you believe me that by the end of that day, by the end of the day, she was fine. That's typical. I don't know where it's gone. It was shot somewhere. All right, so that worked out fine. So steroids are good for something, and actually we have to use steroids when a pig, say, has very bad pneumonia and they have fluid on the lungs. It's severe inflammation. We really believe in veterinary practice, and also the practical side of genuine love. Like if you are obsessed with an animal and so you're watching it and observing and altering what you're doing because you care, that's a huge aid to what you're providing that pig. So alongside serious veterinary drugs comes, you know, how you apply them and how you use them.
The emotional support that they need is humongous, like every animal.
Yeah, it's kind of all pointless, and that is why I think someone said a sick pig is a dead pig, because say Mrs. Wobbles here, Bonnie, who was in the previous one, all of these animals, if we didn't care about their well-being, we could have just put them in, say, you know, a sick room and said it's going to cost too much money and too much time. We don't have those resources, so either euthanize or they'll come through it themselves. But because, you know, you invest your heart, then it's making you look at things in a very different way, and making you see specific things that you say to your vet that lets them advise you. So love is the key, really. I was just going to show you this little thing. For a lot of people have huge problems with if they want a vet to come and they have a vet who's willing to come to pigs, because it's not something that is, most vets won't relish the thought of coming to treat someone's unhandled pig. They're strong, they can be dangerous, and it's very stressful for the vet who's under pressure to treat an animal who you can't put a head collar on, and an animal who goes into shock if you have to bind it to inject it, which has happened in cases not with us, but other people. You know, it's very hard to treat a pig. But there are some things that you can do if you're worried about your vet coming to do something with a pig, and you we've heard a lot of times it's insane. It's like they know the vet is coming, or they know it's the vet before they even get to the gate. These pigs are so clever. They know that vets smell of antiseptic. They know the vet's voice. They know the body language is different, and they know stressed human beings. So one of the things that you can put in place is, for Mrs. Wobbles, who is the smartest pig in the world and needs the vet a lot for her feet and different things, we put buckets of disinfectant beside her before the vet comes, and put on a podcast, a very loud one, to try and desensitize her to new voices and new sounds, and to disguise the smell of the vet. And we also ask our vet not to talk from when he gets out his car at the bottom of the road. He's not allowed to drive up and talk because she knows his voice. So these are things that you can implement as well. If you have a pig who hates the vet, get the smells going, get the sounds going, and that it will allow you a successful sneaky, yucky, and sedate, if that's what someone's there to do. So John Drum there was able to sneak up while we had her down for belly rubs, looking a different way. He came from behind, injected her, and we had a successful foot trimming session. Other just little funny thing, Mabel here has photosensitivity on her ears just from sun damage. And all pigs, once they put their heads down in the ground and their ears flop forward, that back part of the ear is so vulnerable to the sun and can get very badly burnt. So she had to have UV ears made for her. We see a lot of abscesses just from injuries. Pigs who are with pigs they're not used to, tusking each other, perfect situations for infections getting in. I said they're not hardy, but to retract that just slightly, they are very good at healing wounds like this. Wounds like lacerations and abscesses, they're very good at healing and walling off infections like that, as long as they get the additional support that they need. So that abscess resolved itself just with a little soaking, softening the skin, allowing pus to come out and then flushing it. These are the kind of things you see with pigs who are not supposed to be together. Once they get together, this is the clash that happens. This was a little boar who climbed into a big boar's place. They were both castrated, but I call them boars because they came in as boars and they held on to their boar traits, their boar tendencies for longer than we would have hoped for. So that meant they were still massively territorial and could pick up the smells of the testosterone that hadn't dropped off yet of their neighboring once boar. That makes sense. So that's little man's tusk skewered in this big guy's neck. I don't know if you can make that out. So one guy lost a tooth, the other gained a hole in his neck. That healed up very well just by spraying alumycin spray into it once the tusk had been removed. There was no problems after that. By the way, we use an awful lot of alumycin on wounds for pigs because if they're hurt and if they're not total love bugs who will let you do anything to them, but you have to disinfect something, the best way of doing it is just by having that spray bottle of topical antibiotic and getting it on it. And in most cases with wounds like this, that will work very well. He also went on an antibiotic just to make sure he was covered. But this is what he did to the other pig. He was much bigger and he was able to fight back very well. But this was the pig the next day. Again, very good at healing themselves with only a tiny bit of help from us. This is mange. We see a lot of this. We see a lot of this on pigs who come in, their immune system gets compromised, they have lost their home, the only people that they knew, possible other companions. It's an extreme stress for them to move to a rescue farm. It's not instant joy with all of us. We also feel very heavy in our hearts that pigs have been removed from what they know because they're sensitive. And once they lose their bed and the things that they know, their immune system drops and they're susceptible to these sort of opportunistic, advantageous bacteria and parasites. Mange usually comes up about 2 weeks after they arrive if they've had it before in their lives. So we'll see it starting around the mouth, around the ears, around the eyes, but also sometimes in the creases of their, the way they look like little rhinos, pigs. They have the folds on their legs. So sometimes if they have wet dermatitis in those areas, the mange will also take advantage of those areas. And the way we treat that is with Dectomax. We tend not to mess around with herbal things too much because pig skins are so sensitive. And we have just ruled certain things out over the years, even though anecdotally I have heard of herbal remedies working for mange with pigs, and I'm really happy to hear it, but we just like to stop it dead in its tracks. Also with the amount of animals we have, And Dectomax works is a very strong wormer as well. So a shot of that is very useful for a farm like ours, where we have a lot of animals who would be immune compromised. And one shot of that, and then 2 weeks later, a follow-up, and that treats it very, very well. I'll show you how we inject later on. Just for lame pigs, there's a very lame pig at our place. Because we grew without knowing how much we would grow, we weren't able to arrange our infrastructure as we would now. One thing we would make sure is that we have access for a trailer to every enclosure, so that if a pig gets injured, he doesn't have to walk the whole way to where he can have box rest or get to a trailer. So that's what we'd advise for people thinking about building an area for their animal, to make sure you can get them to a stable if they're injured easily without them having to, walk a long way. And also on box rest, make sure these animals have enrichment, and grass is number one. Grass is what they want and what they live for. So any little pig like Penelope here who's on box rest, so a boring time for her, away from her pals, away from her own bed that she knows, and away from natural enrichment, we provide these animals with picked grass and herbs, and that really does a lot for the immune system. So she's not only, once they're in and away from their companions and dealing with an injury, you don't want to then add to their problem by not supporting their natural needs and exacerbating again that drop in their immune system and making everything worse. So this little girl, no, it wasn't her, it was her friend who needed poulticing for an abscess. This is something that we were told couldn't be done because you can't treat sick pigs again. So we had to come up with it ourselves. So this is us poulticing a little pig's leg. She's not sedated. We didn't have a in the field sedation protocol at this time. All we knew was we loved her and she loved cuddles. We brought her in, we gave her lots of belly rub. We didn't have food, so she wouldn't be stimulated. One person dedicated to belly rubbing, the other using poultice materials to try and draw out an infection in her foot. Her companion is in as well. He also needed belly rubs so that he wouldn't interfere with her. Again, no food. You don't want fights over the food, and you don't want them standing up to get the food. So that worked very well. And her abscess resolved perfectly. This is a pig who came in with his tusk grown too long, going into his cheek and causing injury there. This is really, really easy to treat as long as you're confident with these babies. So the cheese wire cutters. So those came off Eddie, who's in the previous photograph. I did have a video of Tara taking off tusks on another pig, just to show you. It's not for the lighthearted. You don't need to restrain the pig. You just need to work with them for a few days beforehand to get them used to having their face touched, and then having their lips touched, then having their tusks touched, then introduce the wire and have them used to it going to their mouth. Once you get to that point, which could take a few days, or they might be chill enough for you to be able to do it straight away. Once you introduce it, you slip it over the tusk, you bring it up away so you're far enough away from the pulp, nowhere near the gum line. And I would actually go quite far, like an inch above, because I don't know what the inside of the tusk looks like. But you don't want to be affecting anything. And then you need strong arms and stamina, because you need to be wrenching your body, your arms left and right, and the pig will be pulling back at the same time. Once he realizes what you're doing, he will start screaming and pulling back, and he's not happy about this situation, but he's not going to run towards the thing that he finds scary. So it's quite a safe procedure for you. You don't need to restrain the pig. You just need to keep those arms going and cut through the tusk, which takes a lot of energy. And don't give up, because if you give up, you won't get him again. So it has worked very, very well for every pig we've had to do. But with some pigs that we feel might be aggressive, or we don't know them, or they're new boars who've just come in, we when we get them castrated, we ask UCD to remove their tusks, their lower tusks. And that's just to make sure that our volunteers and we are safe. Once they're well handled, those tusks regrown isn't a problem unless they're grown abnormally and into the cheek. But if they're grown normally, they should just be growing outside of the cheek and everything is happy. So practical nursing, just going to fly through this. This is Jimmy, who had these crystals developed in his bladder, and it caused an obstruction in his urethra because the boy's urethra is corkscrew shaped. So you have a large amount of area for an impaction to happen if you have these crystals, like granule sludge that form. We don't know why they form in the bladder. There's two different reasons. One is possible too much, I can't remember what it is actually, but we have reduced the amount of beet pulp that they take in because it has a certain amount of oxalates in it that can cause or be a possible cause for it, but there's not enough data on pigs and their bladders. As you can understand, there's no need for it. So we are starting at ground zero really here for pigs, although there is research done into goats and cows with it. But anyway, this was a successful operation for Jimmy. They were able to bypass his urethra using a catheter straight out of his bladder, and they clamped off his urethra. And that gave him time to have the granules treated. He was in UCD for a long time. We were allowed go and love him and make sure that he was he knew his owners hadn't abandoned him, so he didn't drop off, in UCD without his caregivers. And he came through it and did great, and he's still with us now a year and a half later. So we're very happy. It's not always successful. It's very high risk, and we did lose another pig who went in for the same operation, but unfortunately the obstruction wasn't cleared, and he had to be euthanized. So I have actually got to the end, which is incredible. And thank you for everyone who stayed. I just wanted to finish off with these pictures of volunteers who are full of love and our gorgeous pigs getting the affection that they deserve. All of our volunteers get to know how to handle pigs and give them affection, and that's what it's all about. We're able to treat the pigs because our volunteers, with the number of pigs we have, our volunteers keep that affection going and actually get it advanced, get the pigs so relaxed that we're able to do so much more. So that's the end of the presentation. Hallelujah.
Well done, Cathy. That was great. I think there might be some questions in the wee written chat section. I'm not sure if we have time.
Oh, right. Yeah, there's Laura. Would anyone have any questions that they want to ask in real time?
Yeah, hi Cathy, Dennis here.
Hi, Dennis.
Thank you so very much for that presentation tonight. It was really informative and interesting, and I must say a very humbling experience to see the love and care and attention that you give these incredible creatures, the pigs. They certainly have filled out in my mind about what their personalities and their characters, what they're able for, and their vulnerabilities as well, and just how much you're willing to give to them in terms of time and dedication, and the build-up of knowledge that you're getting, the expertise. This has really moved the pig from being, in my mind anyway, from being it's an animal that we're working for here, right, for their rights and all that, but this is really brings them to the fore, just how sensitive and beautiful a being that they are, and I thank you for that. And the one question I had was, how did you get interested in pigs?
Well, myself and the two other co-founders of My Lovely Horse Rescue, always loved pigs. We started our rescue on sorry, there's a nasty delay. We started our rescue in a livery for our horse rescue at the time, on a livery that had 2 pigs, and the owner was a big pig lover. And he was so full of joy when he was showing us his pigs. This was 11, 12 years ago now. And when we started our rescue on when I got my own farm and started the My Lovely Horse Rescue part of it on that, we also got another farm. I was asked to take in 2 pigs from the livery owner. Actually, he'd accidentally bred them without knowing. He asked if we would take 2 on the farm I live on, and we already had a pig on the main My Lovely Pig farm called Wilbur, who was incredible. And to be honest, like the 3 of us, myself, Martina and Debbie, all adored pigs, and we adore all animals. And so anything that we're able to help, or we believe we can help, we're just very, very open to. And so, yeah, long story short, we ended up with 2 pigs on what is now the My Lovely Pig farm, because they kept coming. Those 2 pigs opened up the door to Mrs. Wobbles, who you saw in the intro.
Yeah.
And then because of the immense nursing that was required and the extreme lack of knowledge that I experienced around me for how do we help this girl, and the knowledge wasn't really, couldn't find it, and I couldn't find help really, except for our local vet who's like, well, I'll give this a go, but he'd never treated a pig, you know. So then it was very clear that pigs needed help, because once people online saw that, oh, we took in a couple of pigs, it was like, we need help, and it grew from there.
Thank you. I just say in terms of the when we do the video, the recording, the editing, if there's information that you want to put up, phone numbers, emails, GoFundMe's, things like that, we can add that in written form with the video when we put it up.
Great, thank you. Thanks. Great. Anyone else have any questions?
Cathy, on average, how long do pigs live?
Well, I mean, apparently they live for up to 15 years. So because we've only had pigs for, say, eight years, we can only testify to the ones who are born with us, and the ones who have come from a reliable source who can say exactly how old they are and once they die. But in our experience, we don't allow most animals to die naturally, because we've changed everything about how pigs exist and live and interact, and they're not in their natural forms. They're so far removed from their natural ancestors that are healthy, and who can die of natural causes. We find, you know, that we practice compassionate euthanasia, and it's pretty much my religion. I really believe in allowing a pig not to have a natural death, because the process is so drawn out and so stressful. And so for that reason, because of, say, very painful arthritis, that's a big one that we would decide, let's not let this pig go through this winter with that arthritis, and with the winter causing even more pain in their body. And pigs who say are colicking, you know, they might only be 8 years of age, but for different reasons, we're not really getting to see a natural life in big. So I guess I'll let you know in a few years when our piglets have reached the end of their life, having a good life, you know, having had good care from the beginning to end, then I'll have a better idea of their natural lifespan. Thanks. I hope that answers the question.
I'm sure it does. Thanks, Cathy. Cathy, you've been on for ages. I'm sure you've had a really long day. Like every day, I can imagine. So there are some people asking when your next training day is and that they would like to go back and volunteer with training days and stuff. So if that's something you want us to put in writing and stuff, or if you want to address that now, work away.
Yeah, like in terms of the training days, we wanted this summer and last summer to be open for people just to come along and see what we do and get some information and learn about the true behaviours and needs of pigs. But because, I mean, everything gets blamed on COVID, but honestly, our numbers went up from 2020, where we had 35 pigs, to now having 125 pigs. So we're actually took in a lot more, but have been adopted. But so we didn't get to do the training that we hoped for in the open days, and we want to do more like plant-based visitors days, where we would invite, say, producers and people who are interested in being around animals that are usually eaten and choosing a different lifestyle. But we haven't been able to do it because the workload is so intense, and because I don't think a day goes by when a fence doesn't break and we have to be all hands on deck making sure pigs don't have communications. Or someone has come down with pneumonia, or a piglet is sick. Or so basically what I'm saying is we would love to have it, and if anyone is looking at, for instance, I replied to someone today who said they want to come for piggy training. They've just rescued 3 pigs. They would like to come for piggy training, and actually if we organize a day that we're doing it for her, because I would always offer that for free. Anyone who has pigs already and you are really eager to learn and do the best you can, I would really encourage you to come to our farm and see, you know, how we arrange ourselves and how we look after them. But anyone's welcome to piggyback, pardon the pun, onto, say, a day like that, where we're just sharing information. So what we'll do is put a post up when we are doing that. Unfortunately, it can't be the public open days that we'd like.
And obviously you have volunteers that come and you accept volunteers regularly.
Yeah, I mean, we don't actually, we have volunteers who live with us full time, and they come for, say, 3 months, and it's part of the learning program. It is hard to accept with the time restraints that we have, because the people who would be training people in are also the main carers. And so taking in people, because pigs are the way they are, their behaviours are quite complicated. We have a traffic plate system of green, orange and red to keep our volunteers safe, to know quickly if they're just starting out who is very safe for me to go in with, who am I not allowed in with without supervision. But say if you just say, I'd like to volunteer, I would find it quite hard to just say, sure, come along and just get stuck in. I don't find that responsible. And so what we look for with volunteers is someone who's happy to commit to coming for a day of training, and then they're off, you know, and then but would like it to be regular if it could be.
Yeah. Animals just, they all need that regularity. It promotes complete safeness amongst them, because without that, then you've got strangers working around animals that may be scared of strangers. And
Exactly. And it's not an environment, like we really do pride ourselves on the vibe of the farm. Like, it's very, very peaceful. And it has to be, because when pigs are stressed, they are stressed. And feeding times, you know, 8:30 and 4 o'clock, the roof is lifted. And that actually goes through your whole body, the stress. If you're in any way empathetic, it makes you think dying or on fire or something. It's a traumatic noise. It only lasts for 10 minutes. So we get everyone fed. And then we need a lot of like peace and patience and happiness, because pigs feel stressed, you cannot work with them, or you need to be able to work with them to do the work that we do with them. And yeah, so it's really important.
It just makes you think, though, you know, it's great to have this presentation coming through and allowing people to understand and know how thoughtful pigs are, how emotional they are, how their nutritional needs lead to their lack of nutrition leads to so many physical issues that then will obviously lead on to emotional issues, and it's really important for people to know that you know, we're not allowed to mention the word BACON, you know, but it's very important for people to know that these animals are not BAON. They are so much more.
They are so much more, yeah. There is a lot of vitriol I find on say if you just put up a post about this big pig finally got neutered and he's now able to be with his companions again and live a full life without being separated. The abuse I got from either men who found it revolting that this team of women would remove an animal's, you know, ability to reproduce, totally disregarding the fact that the animal had no quality of life if he was on his own and constantly frustrated, or if he was in with the females making more pigs that no one can afford to look after, or no one responsibly rehomes. But the main thing I got was the delight in people were saying, great breakfast.
Yeah, I've seen it.
We had to delete so many. And then it seems no one does that with dog rescue or horse rescue or anything, not with companion animals. And it's the semantics, it's this problem of semantics that, well, one is companion, the other is food. And if you separate things with words, then you're able to separate them with your mind, because we are our language that we use. It's an uphill struggle.
You're doing a great job. Thank you so much from all the pigs and
thank you.
all the other animals that you help on a daily basis. You're an inspiration.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sticking it to the end. while the computer died and everything.
Well, you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. I hope it's very nice, and thank you very much. Dennis might have a... Dennis?
I think, Cathy, what you said tonight will go a long way to change people's opinions of pigs, that they are just an incredible creature, and the love and the care that you give them really brings them to the fore. So I think a lot of good will come out of this talk tonight, and thank you for your time.
Right.
And thank everybody else that came along as well. It's a great crowd here this evening. So.
And there's a few of the volunteers on and the core team on here as well. And
all right.
We must thank them too.
Yes, thank you.
It takes a village.
It sure does. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you, Cathy.
Thanks, Jackie.
Hopefully I'll be able to see you soon.
Oh, please God. Great to see you.
Hopefully. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.